Der notwendige und auch entschiedene Kampf gegen den Terrorismus rechtfertigt in keiner Weise einen Generalverdacht gegen Menschen bestimmten Glaubens, in diesem Falle gegen Menschen muslimischen Glaubens oder Menschen von einer bestimmten Herkunft. Das Vorgehen widerspricht nach meiner Auffassung dem Grundgedanken der internationalen Flüchtlingshilfe und der internationalen Kooperation. Das Bundeskanzleramt gemeinsam mit dem Auswärtigen Amt setzen alles daran, insbesondere für die betroffenen Doppelstaatler die rechtliche Lage zu klären und deren Interessen mit Nachdruck zu vertreten, das heißt Rechtssicherheit zu bekommen. Und wir sind über diese gesamte Fragestellung natürlich auch mit unseren europäischen Partnern in engem Gespräch. Der notwendige und auch entschiedene Kampf gegen den Terrorismus rechtfertigt in keiner Weise einen Generalverdacht gegen Menschen bestimmten Glaubens, in diesem Falle gegen Menschen muslimischen Glaubens oder Menschen von einer bestimmten Herkunft. Das Vorgehen widerspricht nach meiner Auffassung dem Grundgedanken der internationalen Flüchtlingshilfe und der internationalen Kooperation.
Yes, please. This is the European Union. And in the European Union, we do not discriminate on the basis of nationality, race, or religion. Not only when it comes to asylum, but in any of our other policies.
Si la Russie continuait à être un partenaire stratégique de l'Union européenne.
Well, Iraqi lawmakers have criticized a U.S. travel ban and called on Baghdad to respond in kind. The Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee calls the measure unfair. The committee has demanded the government impose a travel ban on Americans. The Popular Mobilization Unit has also urged Baghdad to stop U.S. nationals from entering Iraq and expel those already present. A prominent cleric has condemned the U.S. travel restrictions. In a statement, Muqtada al-Assad slammed Washington's, quote, arrogance for freely entering Iraq while restricting the entry of foreigners to the U.S. Assad says the U.S. should take its nationals out of Iraq. Well, crossing over to Bloomington, Indiana, Ambassador Faisal Estrabadi, former Iraqi ambassador to the UN. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, tell us overall, first, your perspective on this travel ban and Iraq's response.
Well, I think the travel ban is an unfortunate development. As you will know, the courts, or at least a court, has entered an order barring the administration from enforcing at least parts of the travel ban. But the ban itself seems to me to be against the highest and best traditions of the United States. We do not have in this country, in the United States, there are no religious tests. Individuals can be barred if they represent a threat to the state. That's true in any country, but the United States does not stand up for its highest ideals when it blanketly bans whole groups of people from countries, many of which are not in fact exporters of terror, at least to the United States, certainly, and many of which are in fact the victims of terrorism, such as my own country, Iraq. I understand the response of the Iraqi parliamentarians, and I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for it. Of course, the first principle of international relations is reciprocity. So when the United States imposes this sort of ban, then reciprocity would dictate that Iraq would do the same. There are practical considerations that have to be taken into account. There are Americans working in Iraq's oil sector. That's in the national interest of the state of Iraq. There are Americans who are fighting side by side with Iraqi forces against the terrorists. That also is in the Iraqi national interests. So all of these factors, I think, have to be taken into consideration.
You talked about the roots of the United States and that this goes against the principles of the United States and accepting people from different parts of the world. Is a transition in the United States itself? Are we seeing the beginning of a new United States, a more conservative, and some would even say perhaps fascist-like state?
Well, I had the good fortune of having parents who escaped a fascist state under Saddam Hussein's Iraq. So I have lived as a child in a fascist state. I know what one looks like, I know what one sounds like, I know what one is capable of. For many of us, we are becoming uncomfortable with the kind of language that is being used by the American president. We are uncomfortable with the atmosphere that he is creating. We're a very long way from a fascist state. There are still legal institutions in this country. In this country, we do not have a Führer, we do not have a supreme leader. We have the rule of law, and we have institutions that protect the rule of law. An example of that has been the court's intervention. In the end, in the United States, the institutions are strong, and the courts will have the last word. However, it is always the case that in every generation, the citizenry has to be vigilant against the usurpation of power by those in power, and that is certainly true today in the United States.
All right, thank you so much for being with us out of Bloomington. Former Iraqi ambassador to the UN, Ambassador Faisal Estrabadi, and of course we're keeping our eyes to see how vigilant the Americans will be.